Alright, this is a video response to a friend of mine, Hive Radical, who posed a question to me a little while back. First off, Hive, please forgive me for my tardiness on this response. The topic itself produced a few challenges for me. Now, the question that was posed to me by Hive Radical was that a claim has been made that for all the chronological and spatial span of the Hun Empire, there to date has not been uncovered through archaeology any actual remnants of horses that can be tied to the time and spatial location attributed to the Hun Empire's existence in known domain. Now, there's an author named Alexandra Ritchie who wrote a book called Phos Metropolis. In one section of her book, Miss Ritchie remarks, quote, "The Berlin area had become a part of the Hunnic Confederacy by 420. Indeed, a grave was found in Neukölln, Berlin, in which a warrior lies beside his horse according to their custom." End quote. I'll provide a link for this reading over in the box to the side there. So essentially what you wanted to know is if this quote by Miss Ritchie was true, as some reviews of her book have criticized her overall historical integrity and whether the original claim that archaeology has not to date uncovered any actual horse remains linked to the Huns is still valid. Now, to answer your question, Hunnic archaeology has the problem of being plagued and tied to national and ethnic identity, as unfortunately a lot of archaeology does. Now, when archaeology becomes tied to a sense of identity, whether it's national, ethnic, religious, or otherwise, the goals of excavation have a tendency to become a bit skewed. Now, funding is often provided by organizations or governments who want specific agendas or goals met, and thus equal examination of all the artifacts is often overlooked, and any items that can meet that specified goal are emphasized. Though everything found can and ideally should be documented for proper attempts at interpretation, large amounts of information are never formalized into publication due to their lack of importance, so to speak. So basically, at this point in time, anything related to the Huns is very difficult to deal with, as there are many claims as to who the Huns were, which groups, or rather ethnicities, made up the Huns, and who the descendants today are. There, to date, have been many claims laid down by several different groups that they are the rightful descendants of the Huns. And even most recently in 2005, a group of Hungarians unsuccessfully petitioned the Hungarian government to be recognized as a minority status, as the descendants of Attila. So due to this political problem, so to speak, unbiased or all-inclusive information in regards to the Huns is very difficult to locate or to attain. However, I am currently lucky enough to have access to thousands of journals through my academic studies, and the following is what I have been able to locate thus far. So far, I cannot substantiate Miss Ritchie's claim that a Hun soldier buried beside his horse at Neukölln, Berlin is factual, or that even such a burial would be considered custom for the Huns. Now, this is not to say it's not true, but I found no information to date in any of the journals I have access to or any of my other resources to substantiate this claim at Neukölln, Berlin, or elsewhere. Now, I have not managed to locate any information that would suggest that any horse remnants found in Europe can be directly linked to the Huns. Thus, the original claim that you presented to me, from what I've managed to locate thus far, still appears to be valid. Archaeology has, to date, not located any actual faunal remnants of horses that can be tied directly to the Hun Empire. Alright, now with that being taken care of, I do want to present to you an article by Mr. Rudy Paul Lindner entitled "Nomadism, Horses, and Huns," in which Mr. Lindner discusses the use of the horses by the Huns, the possible reasons for the absence of horse faunal remains in archaeology, and the possible de-importance of horses to the Huns as they began to become semi-nomadic by the time they reached Western Europe and the Berlin area. Now, Mr. Linder draws many of his arguments from the few written texts about the Huns, which were created by those literary groups that had some form of dealing with the Huns. There are relatively few literary sources for the history of the Huns, but Mr. Linder argues that if someone were to see a large number of mounted archers, it would not be considered a regular occurrence, and thus it would be something worth writing home about, essentially. Now, to keep this video from becoming 5 or 6 installments, the essence of Mr. Linder's publication is that the Huns had horses. More or less so. It basically, he's arguing that it depended on the geography and the location, and that affected the military horsemanship of the Huns.